the NHL had its global series in Australia. So
yeah,
the Kings and the Coyotes. Hey, we get to mention the Coyotes. Keep it running. We got to go back and see when that streak started. But anyway, so I mean that's a pretty big deal. The reports are that the ice was not that great. From what I saw, the NHL started shipping over its equipment to make a rink back in May. So they started shipping stuff a long time ago to get stuff over there. But I guess they didn't have their regular chillers to have underneath the ice. So I guess the ice wasn't great, but they decided to go ahead with it. Of course, it's preseason. You don't want injuries to happen. I believe everybody came out unscathed, but I guess the ice was pretty questionable to play on. But thankfully, they got 2 games in. And also the reports that I read, too, is that the Australian fans loved to see it. Like, I guess they're really big into hockey over there, which is great. I mean, it's not anywhere you'd expect hockey to be, but maybe they end up getting some Kings fans, Coyotes fans, maybe even, and that can mean more merch sales. It could just mean that could actually be a big win for the game, other than, you know, like having a new team be in New Mexico. You know what I mean? Something like that.
Right. I also saw a post that said all jerseys from all 32 teams were represented.
Oh,
so like
awesome.
Yeah, out in the crowd. So, you know, they weren't just fans of the teams that were there. They were NHL fans.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I mean, again, like to your point, Australia doesn't seem like they would be that big on hockey, at least just because it's a warm climate place. Right. But you love to be proven wrong. Like, again, I hate to keep pointing back to Nashville. Nashville proved us wrong. And show me where you love hockey, and that's what's important to me.
For sure. And I'll touch on this now because since we're on the topic, a couple days ago, there was the NHL is considering holding an outdoor game in Mexico City, Mexico. And I did chirp that to you. I was like, yeah, because it definitely gets cold enough there. But it could honestly work if they have the right environment, you know, like we just talked about. Obviously, setting up a game in Australia is a little bit more difficult than setting up a game in Mexico City. You could probably make that work a little bit better. So with this news of you know, Australia having it be a big thing that's good for the league, I'm into it. Also, I don't know the number, but again, just going through the reports and whatnot, Australia, the promoter, cut a very big check to the NHL for that. So, you know, it's not always about money, but it kind of is too. So, I mean,
especially for the NHL, like the NHL is a distant fourth in this country. Yes. So they need whatever revenue they can get. And I mean, it's good to see, because we chirp them all the time about how slow they are and how like the decisions are just constantly questionable. But this is a big win for them. Like if they're getting a huge check to go to Australia and it went well, then they did the right thing for once. And there was no hesitation on it. I mean, I guess, you know, we don't know how long it took to make that happen, but it seemed, because last year was the first year they did the overseas thing, and they did it regular season, which was weird, but more on that at a different time. It's just, hockey is a very international game, and you know, we focus on here because almost all of the teams are in America, but wherever people love hockey, they should be able to see hockey.
It's true. I mean, I know for sure, one Australian-born player. He played on the Caps in their Stanley Cup run. Walker was his name. So
I think there's somebody for the Stars or something. I saw it on Reddit. I don't have anything to back that claim, but I think I saw something about somebody on the Stars is an Australian. So
maybe that's two then. Did you watch any of the preseason games so far or no?
I did not watch a complete game yet. But I did watch some preseason hockey, and boy, I got to tell you, dude, like I didn't know I missed hockey as much as I did. Like seeing hockey on the screen again made me so happy. I forget which game it was you sent. in the text thread.
Well, I was talking about Ottawa and Toronto.
That's right. So I turned Ottawa and Toronto on first, and I watched a good portion of that. I forget their young cat. He was getting shelled. And I mean, he wasn't getting beat, but he was getting shelled. Like it was like 26 shots in the first period.
That was Forsberg, your boy Forsberg. He was in net.
No, Toronto's
Toronto's boy. Oh, yeah.
Barzilli,
he was started with a P. Yeah. He's that's right.
Petrozelli, something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, he got shelled for like 26 shots. I mean, I think he got beat 3 times. But I mean, as you pointed out, it was like Ottawa's top line versus B squad Toronto. But
essentially the way that I'm kind of seeing it right now, because I watched a little bit of that game. I watched a little bit of the Wild and Avalanche that same day on Sunday. And I caught what else did I catch? I caught like a couple minutes of the Pens and the Blue Jackets that day. And for what I'm kind of noticing is like the home team kind of has like most of their guys, let's say like 60% of regular roster guys, and then a mix of guys trying to make the team. Whereas the away squad pretty much has like, they might have one of their guys that are already on the team and everybody else is trying to make the squad. So you're going to see lopsided games. Preseason really doesn't matter truly. It's just to see, look at the guys, like who's going to make the squad, and I know Arizona has like 4 squads running right now. So they're kind of all over the place. So that's kind of, I think they're the only, from what I can tell, they're the only team that has multiple squads going, playing games. So that's cool, I think.
And just to kind of close the thoughts on preseason, I watched a little bit of Calgary's 10-0 win.
Oh man.
Again, it's preseason. It doesn't really matter. But after the season Calgary had, I think that does matter a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, to absolutely. Well, and because it's preseason, to put up a 10 spot, I'm with it. Cause like no mercy, man, no mercy. Yeah. You were embarrassed last year from what you were supposed to be. You were absolutely embarrassed and you couldn't score goals. So whoever was on the squad, they scored goals. And that's again, was Demko in net? No, but you still put up a 10 spot. So take that and try to bring that into the regular season, because
Huberdeau
couldn't score at all.
Yeah, Huberdeau scored 2. So, I mean, and again, he was like one of the biggest disappointments from last season. So,
exactly.
I think that's critically important.
But at the time of this recording, we are, I want to say, 11 days out. Puck drop is on the 10th, so I guess 13 days out. 12 days out, whatever. I can't math. You guys know that. But next week's show will be the last show of preseason. And then, so in 2 weeks, we'll be talking about the regular season starting. So I'm hyped for that.
Yeah.
Crazy,
can't believe
it. Crazy. Absolutely crazy.
We started in the playoffs and here we are.
And here we are now. Started at the bottom and now we're here or something. Anyway, moving on. You ready to get the first line out there?
Yeah, man. Let's get this top line out, man. So a while back, somebody asked you, because a lot of times, like over the course of our over-under series, we throw guys under the bus as mediocre. Look at our Toronto. Look at our Toronto Maple Leafs episode for further evidence of that, or right after Austin Matthews signed his huge contract. But somebody asked you, what do you define? What's the line for you, superstar and mediocre? And we said, well, let's put a pause on that because I think that's a bigger conversation.
Yes.
So, Joe, I want to ask you, like, you sent me over what you consider the line to be. What's the line for you for superstar versus mediocre?
Right. And I think mostly, again, this is just my opinion. What does that matter? Not much at all. But this is just my thought as a hockey fan. I think this mostly applies to forwards. Defensemen, I think, have a little bit different setup, right, of what makes a superstar. So for forwards, I pretty much cap this at 8. If you're making $8+ million a year, then you're, to me, considered a superstar. You should put up superstar numbers, to me anyway. So to me, a superstar scorer is going to score 45 to 50 plus goals a year, 30 to 45 assists a year, somewhere around there. But you should definitely be a point per game or more a year if you're making $8+ million a year. And obviously the more over 8 plus over 8, wow, I can't talk, I podcast. The more over 8 million you make, you should be scoring more points per, like you should be a point per game player. You know what I'm saying? So if you're a superstar scorer, 93 to 100 plus points a year, I think falls into that superstar consideration, that superstar talk. Now, if you're making $8+ million a year, 8 or $8+ million a year, and you fall less than 40 goals, which is fine because you could make it up in assists. But if you go less than 40 goals and 25 or less assists, so you're 60 points or under, and you're making $8+ million a year, I think you're mediocre at best. What are you doing? Why are you making all that money to not put up points? At least, again, you can maybe not score as many goals. Look at Johnny Taves. Johnny Taves never really scored that many goals. He might have scored 30 in his career, maybe twice, without looking at any stats, but he was always on the stat sheet, dishing apples all the time, right? So to me, you got to make up for it one way, goals or assists, but you should be a point per game player, if not more than that at the end of the season, in my view, if you're making $8+ million a year. Now, this also kind of goes to what I just mentioned, like Johnny Taves as a superstar playmaker, 25 to 30 goals, 50 to 70 assists a year. So you might still end up, could be a point per game player. Maybe you fall a little bit short, but it all comes down to points to me in that view as a playmaker, right? Again, think Johnny Taves, okay? Or like Artemi Panarin, right? Panarin is definitely a playmaker, 100% superstar caliber in my eyes. I know he plays for the Rags, but he is. He's a playmaker, right? He's always on the stat sheet. Mediocre, less than 20 goals and 20 to 45 assists. I think that makes you still fall under where you should be. Again, if you're making 8 to 8+ million a year, you should be well over that mark, in my view. Again, why are we paying you all this money? Because we could pay somebody that money to do those things. Like, what are you actually doing for your team? I shake my head at it. I'm talking to you, Bo Horvat. I can't even say your name because you're mediocre at best.
So frustrating.
So frustrated. Gosh, you're getting under my skin. So for defensemen, again, I think this is a little bit more of play with it. But again, if you're making $8+ million a year, I'm talking to you, Erik Karlsson, superstar level, I think 1 to 1.5 point per game average pace makes you a superstar defenseman. Because, again, if you're an offensive defenseman, yeah, I mean, Karlsson, of course, offensive defenseman. He 100 points last year, but on average, he's like 70 to 80 usually, right? When he was tearing it up in Ottawa, he was close to that almost every single year, that 75 to 85 point range. I just dropped my notes, but that's okay. So in that frame of mind, like I still would consider that a superstar because you are contributing to your team, right? Now there's also the defensive defenseman. Like you're not going to put up that many points. They're going to do a lot more things that aren't going to end up on the stat sheet. So, that I think more than likely, I can't think of a guy right now who's a defensive defenseman that makes $8+ million a year. Can you?
I don't know what Dougie's contract is, but like Dougie was like the first guy I thought of.
Yeah, I think he probably falls into that, but I don't think he's making $8 million.
I don't think he's making $8 million. So
but that would be a guy that I would think of too.
Because he's a guy who shows up, on the stat line, but like mostly what he's doing is trying to keep people from scoring goals.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think it's if we think about superstars, I'm thinking like Cale Makar.
Yeah,
he won the Norris a couple years ago. And he had 86 points, I want to say. And he's tearing it up, right? So now decent, I wouldn't even necessarily even give defensemen a mediocre at best category because, again, hard to say with defensemen. But decent, I think, is like 0.25 to a half point per game average pace. So you score once every 2 to 3 games you get on the stat sheet, I think is decent. But again, these guys, if they're making 8 to 8+ million, that's the only thing I'm talking about. Making all that money, like, what are you doing? Is where I'm getting at with that. So your superstars in that defensive, again, Cale Makar, mediocre at best. I think, man, I mean, honestly, I do think Erik Karlsson is mediocre at best, generally speaking. He was a superstar last year, but generally speaking, I think Erik Karlsson is mostly mediocre at best to decent, generally speaking. Terrible in the defensive zone, but anyway, that's kind of my setup. Again, what does my opinion mean? Not a whole lot, but I think if you're making all that money, that's the main point. If you're making all this money, what are you doing for the team actually? What are you actually doing? If you're making all that money, you should be on the stat sheet every single night if you're a forward. At the very least, every other game. And make it worth it. For instance, on the forward side, we talked about it in our Carolina episode. Sebastian Aho is a mediocre at best player to me. He is making $8+ million, and he scores 60 points a year. What?
I mean,
that's mediocre to me. I get you're doing things for the team, yes, but you go ghost for 5 to 6 games, and then you show up.
The thing is, like, the points are money. Money are points. You got to put pucks in net. If you're not putting pucks in net, then you're not winning games. And then it comes down to, I mean, with Ahos especially, they have like a very offensive-minded defense. So you got Bernsey back there, but they're a little bit more of a spread-out offense. But still, if you're going to sign that deal for that amount of money, that doesn't relieve you of those superstar duties that you should be doing to earn that money, right?
Yeah,
you still got to put the points up.
I guess I will definitely say I'm very, what have you done for me lately mindset is kind of the way that I look at it. Of course, you sign guys for multiple years. And in this case, when the salary cap goes up, that $8 million contract won't look too bad. But I don't know, I guess in this specific case, talking about Sebastian Aho and the Carolina Hurricanes, you have failed over and over and over again in the playoffs when it actually counts. So why are you paying this guy all this money? It's just like the Toronto situation. We've talked about that ad nauseum, right? So I'm very, what have you done for me lately mindset. I get it. But I think it's a pretty good mindset when we're trying to win a cup. That's what matters. Stanley Cup is what matters. So
here's what I'll compare it to. Like, I don't think they meet that. Well, Timo makes that 8 million criteria, but like, 2 guys got big contracts this year that I'm going to have my eyes on. Jesper Bratt in the offseason gets a huge deal, and Timo Meier gets the huge deal. And I think they were the right moves for our squad, but like now they gotta score that money. They have to show up, and it's going to be critically important in the playoffs, especially because sure, the Devs won a series against the Rags, but they were completely ghost in the second round against the Carolina Hurricanes where it mattered.
Yes.
And they made Vanny and Schmid look like complete jokes out there. So Timo, Jesper, you got to show up. It's go time. You sign the dotted line. Let's do it.
Yeah, and that's So hopefully that explains it. Of course, if you don't understand or you think I'm wrong, at BarnChirpers Pod, feel free to talk crap and tell me I'm stupid. I can take it. I love to chirp, so feel free to send it back by all means at BarnChirpers Pod.
All right.
So this is, I think, one of the other really fun things that we'll do is predicting how the divisions are going to shake out. So you and I had talked off air. We're obviously telling the listeners what we did. We're going to do the Atlantic Division and the Pacific Division today, and we will do the Metro and the Central next week. So that way we have talking points, if you will, throughout the rest of this preseason.
I will say, I don't know, like if you've looked around, a lot of people are predicting like a steep decline for Boston. like steep decline. And I get that, you know, they had a literally record-breaking year last year. So like I assume there will be decline. But Joe, do you think it's steep? Do you think, like, I've seen people predicting them out of the playoffs?
Well, actually, I want to take a timeout on that because we have to jump back to the first line real quick because I actually have some stats for you that I forgot completely about because it goes into the superstar and mediocre at best conversation. So take a little T here and go back. I'm going to give you 3 players, Justin. Okay.
Okay.
2 of them are out in West. 1 of them is out in the East. Okay. I will divulge who they are when this game is over. Let's call it a game. If you can end up guessing these players, then you get bonus points too. And much like whose lines, anyway, the points don't matter. But I'll give you a hint too if you want a hint. Okay, I'll give you 2 hints. Okay. So anyway, this first player plays out West. Okay, and let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In the last 5 seasons, this was his point totals. 81 games played, 84 points. 74 games played, 87 points. 42 games played, 41 points. 52 games played, 66 points. That's the COVID year. 75 games played, 92 points. 82 games played, 105 points. That's out West, okay? He is a forward, okay?
All right.
Do you want to guess maybe who it is?
I don't.
You can have 2 hints.
All right. Well, I'm going to take a swing first. I'm going to take a guess at who came to mind, and then you can tell me if I'm warm or cold. Okay. But my first thought was McKinnon.
You are white hot.
Really? Okay. So
you're not correct, but you're white hot.
Oh, damn it. Same club?
Is that your second hint that you want?
Oh, so okay. So that's damn it. Okay.
Because it could be your second hint and it might give it away.
Damn it.
Maybe if you want that to be your hint.
So if I'm white hot with McKinnon.
White hot. Like you're steaming.
Well, it can't be Landy. Landy missed a whole bunch of time. Who am I blanking on that club? Okay, give me a hint.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's same club. He's a second line guy. Sometimes first line.
Well, damn.
He's been on the club his whole career.
Why Rantanen?
There it is.
Aha. I don't know why his name was escaping me.
Okay. Going over to the East. All right. So just to keep in mind there, last season, 105 points for Mikko Rantanen, and then 92 points and 66 points in the shortened COVID season. Okay. Moving out East in the last 5 seasons, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. 82 games played, 69 points. Or excuse me, I'm sorry. I went 1 too far. Sorry. 68 games played, 73 points. 70 games played, 80 points. 52 games played, 66 points, COVID season. 73 games played, 106 points. 74 games played, 85 points. Oh, pause. Why do you think? Rantanen's contract is $9.25 a year, by the way.
All right. So.
But he falls into superstar. That's superstar.
Clearly. Yeah. Like, what a frustrating player to play against.
Everything I just talked about in that first part of the segment, that's a superstar.
Yeah. So this seems like a guy who was on the way up and then is falling back down. I've got no inclinations other than I'm feeling it's somebody on Toronto that we probably rip on a lot. Am I close?
You're white hot.
Well, my inclination is Matthews.
You'd be correct.
Hey.
Austin Matthews, who just cashed a $13 million contract.
For what?
Played 74 games and scored 85 points, while Mikko Rantanen out west played all 82 games and scored 105 points. Mikko Rantanen scored 15 more goals than Austin Matthews and had, 5 more assists, but 15 more goals than Austin Matthews.
Wow.
And he makes almost $4 million less.
Wow. Also has a cup.
Also has a cup. Put that in perspective. Okay. Also, because we're on it and you guessed it, here are Mikko Rantanen's stats for the 2022-2023 playoffs. As we know, they went Game 7 to Seattle, right? Mm-hmm. Mikko Rantanen, 7 games played, 7 goals, 3 assists, 10 points, +4. Pretty damn good, lad.
Good line, yeah.
Damn good line there.
They didn't lose because of Rantanen.
They didn't lose because of him. Yeah. Austin Matthews, 11 games played, 5 goals, 6 assists, 11 points, +2. And as we talked about in the Toronto episode, that was all in the first round. He didn't do anything against Florida.
Yeah.
Again.
That's that line.
That's that line. The last guy, which is also, this is really interesting to me. I noticed this when we talked about Vancouver last week. So, shit, I gave it away. Well, it's fine because the game was calling out Austin Matthews. Oh, I swore. PG. I'll put a quarter in the quarter jar there. I'm sorry, my fault. Okay. Well, this guy has played 5 seasons, and these are his point totals. 71 games played, 66 points. 68 games played, 66 points. 26 games played, 21 points. Shortened season, but also he was hurt. 80 games played, 68 points. 80 games played, 102 points.
Oh, that's a steep decline. Vancouver.
So, do you know who it is?
Well, my inclination is Pettersson.
Yes, it is.
There we
Elias
go.
Pettersson, who makes 7.25 AAV, by the way.
So he's right there at that line.
He scored 1 goal less than Austin Matthews, and he scored 10, 15, 18 more assists than Austin Matthews.
On Vancouver.
And yeah, okay, he played 6 more games than Austin Matthews did, but does 6 games equal almost 20 more points on a crappy Vancouver team?
No.
Come on, buddy. Come on. So, speaking of this, Elias Pettersson, like 66, we're not counting COVID season, but he probably would have scored about 60 in that season with a full season. 66, 68, 102. This guy is in that superstar playmaker conversation to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because of his consistency. So I just wanted to share that. Obviously, he doesn't have any playoff stats to talk about because Vancouver is never going to make the playoffs. But again, that just let all that sink in about our conversation with superstar and mediocre at best, because I rest my case.
That's a guy who's going to get a huge payday somewhere when his contract's up.
I would love to have him on the Caps.
If he's making $7 million now on a garbage team,
yes.
Like, yeah, again, we talk about the gaslighting Canucks. Like, maybe they're not garbage. Maybe they eke into the playoffs, but what are they going to do when they get there if they do? So
exactly. But yeah. So anyway, I rest my case. Going back to your question about how much do I think Boston is going to drop off? I do think there's going to be a significant drop off, but the thing about it is, kind of the magic number to make the playoffs is 98 points in the East. Usually, that's what it kind of seems like. So I do think that they're probably still going to make the playoffs, but they are definitely going to fall a bit in the Atlantic. I feel like we've talked about that. We talked about this in the Boston episode, right? They have the same coach. They have the same, community, if you will. They have the same gameplay, but they did lose some significant pieces. They lost their defensive center in Bergeron. Charlie Coyle is also kind of a defensive forward, but is he Bergeron? No, there's only one Bergeron, right?
Yeah.
You lost Bertuzzi, who came over at the trade deadline, but he was an instant, shot of adrenaline in that lineup. You lost Orlov, also came over in the trade deadline, so it wasn't really that much. Sample size was small, but he still was that other defenseman that could score goals. You just, I don't know. I think there's going to be a significant drop off.
Didn't they deal off Taylor Hall too? And
Taylor Hall, Nick Foligno. Those guys
Foligno's a big loss. Yeah,
are key pieces to the Boston squad. So again, even with the same culture, all that same stuff, I still think that there's going to be a drop off.
Yeah, it's interesting because you pointed out the 98 point magic number. Florida eked in at 92. And you look at the rest: Buffalo, Ottawa, Detroit, Montreal. Boston's still better, for sure better than Detroit, Montreal. Probably like Ottawa and Buffalo is where you're looking at, are we even Stevens here, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that makes sense. So since we're there, do you want to go from the bottom up? 8-1?
8-1. Is it the Montreal Canadiens or is it the Montreal Canadiens?
I think it's the Montreal Canadiens that day. I got Montreal at 8 as well. Yeah. I do think they're going to be better than last year, but
68 points last year. They should be better than that.
Delay.
A little bit. Yeah, I think we're on a little bit of a delay.
I think so.
But I better than 68 points.
Agreed. Yeah, I think they'll definitely be better, but they're still going to be last in the Atlantic. Like they're such a young squad. We talked about this in the Montreal episode. I feel like they should be playing like as if they're like in juniors. Just have fun, and just rip around the ice and go for it. Like there's no expectations here.
So this is where it starts getting interesting, is already the 7th spot. Who do you have at the 7th spot?
I have the Detroit Red Wings at 7.
Yeah.
I like the Wings. Again, I'm getting close to my first prediction of 3-5. So this is going to be year 4, I believe, of the Yzer plan. But I just don't think they have it yet.
It'll be interesting to see what DeBrincat brings to the club, but I don't think DeBrincat is the piece that gets them there this year.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I feel like he could very well be a lot of fuel to the fire, but he's not going to bring you up 5 spots to make a playoffs. You need other guys to step up around him and be that supporting cast as well. He could very well be a huge spark. I guess I'm optimistic about that, but he's not going to do it alone.
So now we're looking at the 6th spot, and again, like already at 7, it's already interesting because both of you and I are high on Detroit.
Yeah,
and we have them at 7.
Yep.
So
the Atlantic is. When I did this morning, I was like, this could go either way. So, who do you have at 6 first?
I hate to do this, but they just came off the Cup. A lot of injuries, so they're going to be missing guys. I like the Panthers club, but I think Ottawa and Buffalo are about to make that leap, and Florida just isn't going to have the full gas tank all season. So I'm putting Florida at 6.
I have them at 6 too. For everything you just said.
They shocked the world getting to the Cup finals last year, and they eked into the playoffs. I think they're still a good club. It's just there's other things happening in this division, and unfortunately, this is just not a great year to go into the season injured.
Yes, and I mean, it just comes down. We talked about this in the Florida episode. The goaltending situation. What are we going to get?
Yeah, is Bob?
It's literally a question mark because we don't know if Spencer Knight is for sure going to be back.
Yeah,
and we don't know what Bob we're going to get. So it's such a question mark.
Yep.
The squad, I think, could do it, but goaltending is 98% of the game.
Yes.
Really. So,
yep.
Okay, so I will start this next one at 5. And again, when I was making this Atlantic predictions, I was like, man, how can I put this team at 5? But for the reasons that you said just earlier, I don't want to give anything away, but I think there's so much going on in the Atlantic that this very well could happen. But I will say, before we even move any farther in the Atlantic, I believe that both the East wildcards are going to come from the Atlantic this year. I will say that. So, which is why I put this team at number 5, the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Wow.
Did you put it at 5 too?
Yeah. Well, it's I mean, two things, like 2 reasons, because like you want to, they got another year older. They did lose some pieces. I mean, they're not going in injured. They still have like the core there, but they're another year older, and they lost to Toronto in the first round last year. Like, I mean, you could view that as fuel for them. It's hard to bet against Tampa, Joe. Yeah, it really is.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
But I keep hammering on this. Buffalo and Ottawa like are better this year, and
they're younger
and younger. So somebody's got to take the step back. It's probably Tampa.
And again, you just said it, but just to touch on the Vasilevsky, like if you have Vasilevsky, like you can never count out Tampa Bay Lightning, right? You never can ever count them out. But again, just all that hockey being played over the last 4 seasons, it could have done a lot to that squad in the sense of being tired. And Vasilevsky did not look like himself last year at all. Could he bounce back after this rest? 100% he could. Or that could have emptied the tank, and that could be the Vasilevsky that he is now. We don't know. We won't know. But again, to my earlier point of that, I believe Tampa's going to grab that second wild card spot, because going back to what I said, I think Toronto's probably going to win the Atlantic, but they're going to have to face Tampa Bay again in the first round. I believe Tampa's going to grab that second wild card spot. That's why I put them at 5.
So that brings us up to 4. We're really
take it away, Tap.
So we have Boston, Toronto, Buffalo, and Ottawa left.
Yep.
And I'm really high on 2 of them. One of them I'm not high on, but they're just good. And then there's one who I know is coming down.
Yep.
All that to say, I think it's Ottawa here at 4.
I swear to God, we did not go over this ahead of time, but I literally have Ottawa at 4 as well.
I mean, when you look at it, this is two spots up for them, right? Yes. I do think they got better. I don't think they got, division winning better. I don't think they're going to shoot up into the automatic spots. I think they're contention for wild card better. And they're another year older, but like in a good way, because they're still young. It'll be interesting to see like how, if Corpy just grabs that job, because we assume he's 1A. Like if he slots in nicely there, we could be looking. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if they do like the Devils last year and go nuts. But I think the safe bet is here at 4.
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing that I would touch on there is, again, it was just preseason, but when I watched Forsberg looked really good in net after coming off of both knees having MCL surgery. Again, it's just preseason, but I guess just the vibe. Like he looked really well. Jesus, I can talk. He looked really good, like just in the slide across the net, that kind of thing. Where I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm a goalie, I recognize that thing. But yeah, the same 4 for Ottawa.
4.
This is great. Right. This is crazy. Honestly, this is wild. This is wild here, Justin.
How lockstep are we? This is where we might start seeing differences, though.
Maybe. I mean, this one I think is pretty simple. We already talked about it. I have Boston at 3.
Yeah, man. They're dropping. They're definitely dropping.
Yeah. I mean, they could lose 20 games and still end up with 100 points.
Yeah. So it's it's just they had such a great year, and in all honesty, it might be good for them to fall this far. Like they might, just like Florida did. Florida wins President's Cup, barely ekes into the playoffs, and then shows up as the President's Cup team in the playoffs. So this might be good for Boston anyway, for them to drop that far. But there's no way they repeat last year. Especially as we already talked about, they lost pieces. So winning the division, not likely. Being top 2, probably not likely.
Right.
Barring injuries, of course.
Yeah, barring injuries. And I mean, like you said, I think that was a really good point. I mean, obviously you didn't win the cup last year. You would love to win the cup, but you really, in essence, you can't get any better than last year.
Yeah.
Asterisk winning the cup, of course. But so, this come down might be a good thing overall for the club. Again, I don't like the Bruins, but this is probably good overall for the club. It's kind of the same that we talked about with, Montreal. I think there's a little bit of pressure and expectation because you are the Boston Bruins. You're an original 16, but I feel like the pressure is kind of off. Like nobody's expecting you to do anything this year. So that could be a good thing.
Yeah. Well, we already know that these last 2 we definitely are in lock with, like for sure. Like
yeah, I think so.
So
that's crazy that we literally 1 through 8 are exactly the same, and we did not talk about this.
And it's crazy because when you're looking at it, this division looks like it could go any way. And I mean, obviously it still could. You got to play the game, but
sure.
I got Buffalo.
Buffalo could easily be interchanged. Easily.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
at 2, I got Buffalo.
Yep.
Because Buffalo, like I'm really hot. They've been on the up these last 2 seasons. Last season was great. They were like a point away from making it. Like that is just, and their goalies are young.
Yes.
I mean, they're 6K and Levy are very young, and they both showed promise last season. So you put another season on them, we could be looking at something magical here from Buffalo.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, everything you said. And just a double take on Levy too. If he is the Jedi Master that he was at the end of those last 6 games, dude, unstoppable. So and 6K is a solid goaltender too. So give him another year of seasoning and being on this good Buffalo Sabres squad, I'm looking forward to the future.
Yeah, man. And of course, that means who's number 1?
With Toronto, as we talked about. I mean, they're essentially kind of the lock to win the Atlantic. They are a good team in the regular season. We know this. They will do great in the regular season, and then they're going to choke in the playoffs. That's what they do. I don't necessarily think that they're going to run away with the Atlantic, but I do think they're going to win significantly, if that makes sense. Like they'll probably win by 10 points at least, I would say.
Yeah. It's just hard to argue against that. Like they're just a good regular season club. And that's historic. Like there's empirical proof. Like we can go back the last couple seasons. They play well in the regular season and just don't in the postseason. So they'll blow it in the playoffs. Okay, cool. Well, that was crazy. I don't know if we can match that, but we're going to try. Let's move over out west and talk about the Pacific. This is another oof. Like, I mean, there's a couple gimmies here at the bottom. Like, we could be off in the order of them, but there's clearly a bottom 3. But it's the order that's the question mark, right?
Agreed.
So who do you got at 8?
I got San Jose at 8.
Yeah.
I think they are going to be the worst team in the NHL this year. They don't know who they are. We don't know who they are. We don't know what they're doing. which is fine. Just go into that full rebuild. But,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we talked about in the San Jose episode, I do feel like guys like Duclair are going to be on the chopping block, on the trade block around trade deadline time. Potentially, even though he said that he wanted to be a Shark, Logan Couture could potentially be on the trade block. I feel like San Jose, you need to scorch earth and just get rid of everything you have right now. Your Logan Couture, Thomas Hertl, Vlasic, anybody that's been there for 5 years or more, get rid of them, get assets, and just literally start rebuilding this team.
Yeah. I hate to see it because my guy Mackenzie Blackwood is there. Z is there. Yep. I don't know if they re-signed Janssen or not, but like my guys are there. I want to see them do well, but sorry, like it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, just got to rebuild. Like it's going to be bad, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully maybe not that bad, but it looks pretty bleak. So, but then again, with Carlson out, maybe with the cancer gone, maybe it's better. I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know. We'll see. What do you got at 7?
I got the Ducks at 7.
I also have the Ducks at 7.
I think the Ducks are going to be good, but not good enough to get it done. You know what I mean? Not good enough to get wins. They're going to look good on the ice. They're going to shock some people with how well they play, but I just don't see the wins happening. Yeah. And we still don't know what's going to happen with Gibson. He wants out. It looks like maybe this gets drawn all the way to the deadline, but like
also Zegras is not signed.
Yeah.
Zegras has not practiced, has not played, has not done anything with the squad.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy that we
are 12 days from opening day, essentially.
I mean, I say that's crazy that you don't make that happen, but like we're talking about them at 7 in the division.
Right.
So like,
yeah,
I mean, you want to give people something to come see, but at the same time,
but maybe Leo Carlsson is your new guy. Maybe Leo Carlsson is the guy now, because I mean, while I like Zegras, but he's only been a 50, 60 point guy.
Yeah.
Like the sample size is small, sure. But yeah, he scores some cool Michigan goals every once in a while, but what else is he doing for the squad? So I don't know. I can kind of see why they've held out and not signed him, because he probably wants a big paycheck. And maybe you're like, we'd rather go like maybe 3 years at 7 and not give you the 8x8 like we gave Troy Terry.
Yeah.
But that's a whole other conversation to have, and we are running up against it.
Yes, we are.
At 6, I have the Vancouver Canucks.
Of course you do.
Again, I mean, yeah, we talked. Well, I mean, last week was awful. Would you rather and over under, because this team is just nothing to talk about.
They're boring. I mean, there's assets there, and you hope to see them get it done, but do they? I mean,
I'd like to see Demko have a good, healthy year. I think Kuzmenko is a good forward. JT Miller is good. Garland is good. Pettersson, obviously, we just talked about. Like, they have some guys, but maybe a full season with Tocchet can turn it around. But we've also talked about that before with every other coach that they've had over the last 3 years. Oh, Boudreau's in there. Maybe he can turn it around. So I don't know. This might be another situation where you just have to go scorched earth and get rid of everybody and start fresh.
Yeah. Yep. Probably.
Who do you have at 5, Justin?
All right. So this is where we might start differing. I got the Kings at 5. It's a steep drop, but they got another year older. I don't think they really got any better in the offseason. I mean,
I think they got worse.
Yeah, and so you lose a lot of big pieces, and all you got back was PLD.
Again, mediocre at best.
Yeah.
I have Calgary at 5.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other team I was batting around, but I think Calgary got better, but I think the Kings got worse. So I got the Kings at 5. So you got the Flames at 5. Who do you got at 4?
LA's at 4 for me.
Okay, so we've got them swapped. I've got Calgary at 4.
And I think that's, again, I think honestly, really 4 through 8 are very, well, not super interchangeable. 4 and 5 are definitely interchangeable. 6, 7, and 8 could easily be interchangeable.
Could very much be up in the air. Yeah. So now we're looking at the top of the division. And
we're looking at playoffs here.
We're looking at playoffs. At 3, I got Seattle. I think they take the next step up, and they don't have to wild card their way in. I think they got better. I don't think they got any worse.
Yeah, I don't think they got worse by any means. I feel like they stayed the same. I feel like the assets they got replaced what they lost. I don't think they got any worse. I'm excited to see Matty Beniers as a second-year guy, what he can do. A healthy Jared McCann, I think, is going to be huge. And if Gruby can be on his S like he was in the playoffs, watch out.
Yeah.
But I agree. I think they take this step up, and they are going to solidify a playoff spot. Like, it's not going to be a guess. Like, we just barely made it in. Like, they're going to take a playoff spot.
Yep. And so here's the other spot where I think it could be interchangeable. We only got Vegas and Edmonton left. Who you got at 2?
I got the Oil at number 2.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you do. Yeah.
So obviously Vegas is number 1.
Yeah. It's hard to bet against McDavid, but like if you look at history, first of all, but number 2, they didn't do the one thing that we said, hey, you shore up your goalie situation. And again, Stu's a rookie, he had a good rookie season, but like Soup is the other guy still.
Yeah, no. You got to go out and get somebody.
Go get somebody.
Again, when we talked about this, I said, go get Gibson. You'll win the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
Go get Hellebuck. You'll win the Stanley Cup.
For sure. So they didn't, again, it's hard to bet it, with just McDavid and Draisaitl alone, they're number 2, that doesn't even take into account the rest of the club. So number 2. And of course, that means both of us have Vegas at number 1.
Yes.
I'm never betting against Vegas again.
Yeah. I think they're coming back with the pretty much the exact same team that they just won the cup with. So yeah, it's hard to count them out from winning this division. Truly. I mean, that's all. I don't really have anything else to say about it. Really. I just think until they're proven wrong, they're going to win until somebody else steps up and proves it. And we've talked about it before with Edmonton. I don't think that they have the ability to step up and prove it, that they're the number 1 squad in the West yet. And Seattle is still young. They're going to grab a playoff spot, but they aren't going to win the division against Vegas. That's probably not going to happen. So yeah, just off the cuff, well, maybe we'll save, we were going to do Stanley Cup champion prediction, but maybe we'll wait till next week when we've talked about all the divisions, because otherwise you might give it away of what your rankings are. So yeah, cool, man. Do we is it about that time? Pull the goalie?
Yeah, let's pull the goalie.
So we're going to do 3 bold predictions for this season. So Justin, why don't you go ahead and give me one bold prediction?
Oh, okay. This may not seem bold, but when you look at history is going to say that I'm right here. I'm predicting that the Minnesota Wild will get to the conference championship this year.
Ooh, I like that. I think that is bold. That's bold.
They got to do something, right? But I mean, I'll accept getting out of the first round, but I like the club, and they got, they're young still, and you still got Flower doing great and Gus Bus on the way up. So
I like that bold prediction. I'm going to go with the goalie one. My bold prediction is that Philip Grubauer will win the Vezina this year.
Ooh, I like it.
Very bold, because
very
kind of unproven, but I just really loved what I saw in the playoffs from Gruby. I think he's going to take it this year. I would love to see that. Maybe that's just me being a homer. Very possible, but I do believe he has it in him to do that.
All right. I'm going to go with another bold prediction. I mean, it very much depends on if a trade deadline comes for Connor Hellebuck, but the New Jersey Devils, my beloved Devils, will lose in the first round.
Oh no, Justin!
I hate it. But if we don't go out and get a goalie, like, it's going to happen. And I mean, I still think we're projected on the up. I think we're gonna have a really good regular season. More on that next week. But like, you know, we didn't the one thing we didn't do is take care of the net.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Whew, man, that just got me sweating. Here's something that'll get you sweating, Justin. And this is bold, but somehow I really, truly believe it. Last year, the Arizona Coyotes were 28, 40, and 14. This year, the Coyotes will win 40 games.
Look, man, like we mention the Coyotes every week. And
every week
we go bing. But I am proud of the Coyotes organization this year. They did things, and I'd love to see them get rewarded for it. I mean, obviously, you know, winning 40 games isn't, you know, a true reward, but like it's a better season, and that's what all you can hope for. All right.
Last one.
Here's another one I hate. Trevor Zegras will play for the Chicago Blackhawks this season.
Oh, that's spicy.
I hate it. I hate it. I hate it.
Spicy.
But they might not pony up for him. And who's out there who's got money who can throw some around? And
that's
who
true.
does the league want to win soon?
Good point. Yeah, you're right.
Hate it.
You're right.
But I think that's what's going to happen.
On that, shoot, I kind of gave that one away already. Okay. On that same note, maybe this isn't that bold, but he is a rookie, so potentially it doesn't happen. But Connor Bedard will score 100 points this year.
Wow. Rookie season coming out firing. Yeah.
That's a lot for a rookie. That's better than any rookie ever. So,
but the way this guy's been the way he's been touted, generational talent, like they rigged it so the Hawks could get him. The Hawks don't have a lot going on for them. He's going to be their guy. So
it's possible.
Again, like you said, it's bold, but like, I don't know that it's out of the question. Yeah. I don't know that it's out of the question. So,
all right.
There we go.
Well, that was this week's show. So again, at BarnChirpers Pod, like, subscribe, give us a quick little review, Spotify, wherever you're listening, on the YouTube, subscribe, give us, I already said it, a follow at BarnChirpers Pod. What am I talking about? Follow your Norfolk Admirals, our Norfolk Admirals. And next week we'll be talking about the Metro and the Central and whatever else comes up in our brains and in the world of hockey. So watch your preseason games and listen to us, share it, all that good stuff. Until next time, stick taps and sellies, boys. Clap it up.
Clap it up and end the recording.